Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Mulder, and today we're going to talk about an interesting subject here about the time camera. But before we get to that, there's sort of a chain of events that led to we were discussing the time camera, and it was just kind of like, uh, coincidences and synchronicities and that kind of thing. But anyway, Lady Karen, would you mind telling the audience how what you were working on here concerning little pesties? Oh,
Okay, so hello everybody.
yeah, yes, we hear you fine.
Okay, I'm sorry, we're still cutting out a little bit, but it's all right. So let's start off then. So I called Dr. Moder a couple of days ago and said, we got the worst fire ant problem we've had in decades. I want to kill those little suckers, right? I called them something else, so I think, didn't I, Dr.
Yes,
Moder?
yes, it was colorful.
Yes, it was very colorful. So I had my great idea of how I was going to do it. So my idea of how I was going to kill these little buggers was I had some of these, what are those little paper things called? They're
Glass, I think
glass,
glassine. I don't know how they say it in
yeah,
UK, but glassine.
glass thing, yeah, paper thingies. So I go out there, and my husband's out there, Dr. Whom is out there with the poison. So I collect some poison in the little glassine envelope, and then I put gloves on and of course to collect it all. And then I collect some ants that have since died in the other envelope. And I think, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to call Dr. Moder. I'm going to set up this operation, and I'm going to put the poison and the ants is the witness, and a picture of my property from Google Earth. And then I'm going to set my dials and my rates, and I'm going to then put the ants, change them over to the plate so that the poison will be broadcasted to the ants. And I had a photograph of the ants and the real ants on my property, which is, nearly 9 acres. Advice and warning, of which I'm thinking, okay, well, I touched the glass in envelope, but I put gloves on to handle it afterwards. My husband had touched something, so our DNA is on this. So if I put all of this on this radionics device, and I'm broadcasting poison, and my DNA that the ants were in, even though I thought I was clever with wearing gloves, but somebody who made the envelope, maybe their DNA is on it. So would I be in effect be broadcasting poison to the ants and also to whoever's DNA was on the envelope or on the radionics device, Dr. Moder?
I've heard about this before from magicians who had concerns of that kind of thing where they were using, I don't know, blood or whatever they're using it for. And my biggest concern was that their somehow or another, somehow or another, their energy would get entangled with somebody else's or part of whatever it is, like these energy workers, when they're trying to clear somebody, that whatever this thing is they're trying to clear, it gets attached to them, or they get remnants of it, and it affects them in a negative way. And so yes, that is a possibility. For me, I've never really have done that kind of thing. I mean, last time you had a
So
problem,
Dr. Moder's advice.
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. What is happening actually, Dr. Moder and folks?
Oh
I've got
yes,
I've got new internet here, but I've got the
yeah, you got to have a
internet, the cable internet fiber optic, have one of those little, boxes put here to get the signal. So I'm not getting clear signal to where I'm at. So if
mm,
I crap out here or there, bear with me. But next show, I should have my little box put in.
oh, fantastic. But yeah, I remember the first time you had a problem, and that
So
was
yeah, I didn't hear some of what you said, but so then I decided, yeah,
hello.
yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. What I was saying was the first time, you had a problem, it was coyotes. Okay. And all we did was move the coyotes to a different location, correct?
Correct. And that's the
Yeah.
advice you gave me
Yeah. 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 I said you had a neighbor that you were not so
the
fond.
other day was relocate. I just envision of little ants with like little sticks on their bag with handkerchiefs with all their belongings marching off of my property and going to some neighbors down the road that I don't care for, right?
Oh, that's what I would have done. Look at them as a resource.
Well, it wasn't like I'm just going to relocate them somewhere where they
Yeah,
can live out their lovely long fire ant life somewhere else except for on my acreage.
correct. Exactly. And that was the advice I had. Sure, you can annihilate them, get rid of them. Yeah, they'll take care of that bunch. But what you want to do is to permanently take care of the situation because they'll come back. These little things are they're very persistent. So yeah, just send them off somewhere else. Greener pastures, just like what we did with coyotes. What's the difference? Hello?
Yeah, make life somewhere, make it uncomfortable and in a poison would be doing some research and thinking like, is there an essential oil? Is there an herb that they don't like? And then sending them that so it's uncomfortable for them. So instead of killing them,
Yeah. You could really
I'm
get
just going to make it like, oh, I don't want to be, don't like it. Yeah.
yeah, or you could really what's it, that gopher dust or whatever that people use. I mean, I've used it myself in radionics devices. What it does, it doesn't hurt anybody. All it does is make them leave. And that's the whole idea. Or a hot foot powder. I've heard about this. I'm sure there's energies in it that could be utilized. And again, it's not to cause any kind of physical harm. All you want is this annoying thing or person to just leave your property, to be out of your world. You don't care what they do outside of your purview. You don't care. That's none of your business. You just don't want them interacting with you. And so I
No,
think, yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So I mean, I'm looking at that's a possibility. I've worked on a couple of cases for people where they want these very what I call antagonizing individuals to leave and just to get out of their space, and they don't, whatever. And I used just a little bit of some of this. I think it was hot foot powder or gopher dust or whatever. I don't really keep track of what each one of them does. All I know is I just want this individual, or these individuals to leave, and I set up a machine to project that toward that target. And damn if they didn't leave like within 5 to 7 days. And so that's what we're looking at here. It's the same kind of thing we're trying to do with the ants. We don't want to harm them. We just want them to have a different geography. That's all.
Well, exactly. We're changing the subject quickly until we get back onto this subject again, because we're going to be talking about this particular camera. So
Hmm.
today I ran a
Hello.
little experiment and it was
Okay.
just so well, let's go meet at this really nice, expensive hotel. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, I didn't know if you lost. Yeah, let's go meet at this really expensive hotel and have coffee. And they had a lovely fireplace there, and there was a piano player, so you know that that was going to be some high dollar coffee.
Right.
So I
Right.
ran a little operation that I thought I needed something given to me today. Somebody needed to gift me with something today. So
Hmm.
we go there, and we were there like 2 hours. I mean, I drank decaf, or I would have been wired like for the rest of the day. So I had 2 cups of decaf. She had 2 cups of coffee. So we had 4 cups of coffee between us,
Hmm.
and spent 2 hours right in front of the piano by the fireplace, talking about the universe and you name all kinds of things. So at the end, I said to her, I'm going to treat you to coffee, and she said, "Thank you." So I go over to the bar area and I'm like, "Oh, I'd just like to pay for our coffee before we leave. We had 2 cups each." And the girl looked at me and said, "Coffee's free to you." I said, "No, no, I'll pay." She said, "No, no, no." She said, "Enjoy it. It's on me. Have your coffee." And I just went over, like kind of pat her and said, "Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it. That's very sweet of you." And we went out the door. So yeah, maybe it saved me $10. I don't know. It wasn't about the money, but it was the intent that somebody, she was happy, she saw me smile, we were happy, and hey, so what is it you tell people when they first start into this, Dr. Motor? Start with small things. And
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, and that was the advice I gave somebody before. They were kind of skeptical about this technology, which I can understand. I can I don't I don't find any offense to that. And I said, well, with this, you start small. If you never dealt with manifesting, or you really don't have that strong of a background in these kind of things, start off with something small. And the usual example is somebody buys you a cup of coffee. That was the basic one of the first things I will list. Just something basic, whatever it may be. You get that cab, or you're not, you have a great commute to work that day, or you get praised by the boss, or whatever it may be. Little things, there's something. Go for little things first and see where it takes you. And once you get bigger and more successful, then your confidence level grows when it comes to using these radionics machines. And you could do really just about ultimately, whatever you imagine, you'll be able to basically accomplish with these machines. But, the reason why we got involved here, talking about this, about the ants and what have you, I think it's based on using photography with radionics. And my good friend Joshua P. Warren did a fantastic show. If you guys haven't heard this yet, it's on his podcast. It's called Strange Things, and it's in conjunction with Coast to Coast. I will leave a link in there for the podcast in the description. And also, he did a separate YouTube video to accomplish well, anyway, to be a part of the podcast. Anyway, and he goes step by step with this experiment. And what he was trying to do was create a radionic time camera using one of the wishing machines, which you can find on wishingmachineproject.com. Fantastic machines, very budget conscious machines for people who want to get in the game. They are perfect for that. And anyway, he did a experiment where he was trying to transfer the energy of an object. And in this particular case, it was a coin, a Canadian coin. And I don't know if they call it the Kiwi or whatever. Anyway, it was it had like a stop sign. I think it had like 8 sides to it. And he put it on a plate and was trying to transfer it uh, to the film on the other plate. And I know if this sounds confusing, just watch the video, listen to the podcast. He explains this far, far better than I can. And so with that said, he exposed the I think it was a piece of Polaroid film onto the input or the output side of the uh, radionics device, the wishing machine. I think it was the Elux, and he exposed uh, the energy coming off the coin through the circuitry of the Elux and directed toward the output plate of that machine. Well, here's what happened. He got an image, right? It matched almost perfectly with the energy or the coin itself that he was trying to project through the machine. So that right there proved that yes, the machine is actually functioning. It is projecting energy off the output of it. Okay, and that piece of Polaroid film was able to pick up that image. Fantastic. My hat's off to Josh on this. It's a great experiment, and just using something that really didn't cost a lot of money to set up a very valid, experiment such as a little laboratory for this, and just to use a little bit of ingenuity, and he made it work. But here was the thing: he was trying to use it as a true time camera, because the legend of it is that I think the Delawares are working on the first camera to in order to try to go back in time and take photographs or whatever, like say the birth of Christ, or the crucifixion, or Civil War, Gettysburg Address, whatever. Okay, in Josh's particular case, he wanted to capture an image from Kitty Hawk during the Wright brothers airplane, when they first the day that they actually were able to get a heavier than aircraft off the ground. And so uh, that was the experiment, but unfortunately, the film was blank. No image appeared. But I think the premise behind it, I think, was great, and I liked where he was going with all this. And it kind of jumps in another thing. I know that we can go to many different tangents with this, but I think you were mentioning the experiment. Are you still there, Karen?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. Yeah, I was just we got something funky going on with this. We're using Zoom, and it's just acting weird. And now I'm hearing
Okay,
a.
so if you don't mind, I okay, so if you don't mind, I
Okay. All right. You still there? Hello.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Oh, you sound so much better. Do you hear me?
Yeah, so are we still on the show or did it drop?
No, we're still on the show. Let me look. I think we're still
Okay.
recording. This is live, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay,
So
well,
yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, what Lady Karen did was Lady Karen did because I couldn't hear half of what Dr. Mulder was saying and it was dropping so bad. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to have to finish it with my cell phone.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah, like I said, hopefully we were able to pick up a majority of the stuff on the recording. I'll go through it before I release it. But anyway, getting back to what I was
Yeah.
saying, uh, I think it's stuff that you and I have already discussed off the air. And I was just kind of giving a background as to the experiment that Joshua P. Warren did that kind of inspired the show to talk about this time camera. And anyway, I kind of went through all these experiments, and again, the one of trying to trying to create an image on this piece of film of a past event using radionics in this particular case was not successful. It doesn't mean that if he keeps trying at it, that eventually he'll hit on something. I think that's a strong possibility. But yeah, the premise behind it I thought was great. I liked the way he did this. Now, getting back to what does this have to do with the ants? Well, here is the thing I think you discussed also. They were doing experiments where they take a photograph and they would have the project insecticide toward a particular part of section of the land or whatever from the photograph, the aerial photograph, and then I guess kill off ants or insects or something along that line. At the other part of the film would be
Yes,
untouched.
so so what I did some research on, which was very quick research, but and I've missed a lot of what you said, but the research was on George Delaware, and George Delaware, 19th of August 1904 to the 31st of March 1969, was born in Northern England, and in later life became a civil engineer in the pay of the Oxford County Council. In 1953, he resigned from his post to work with the discredited is what they say in these articles. I mean, there's Wikipedia for you, right? The
Right.
discredited field of radionics, Dr. Mulder. We are discredited, right? The
Yeah,
real
yeah,
Dr. Mulder and Lady Karen, yeah.
yeah.
In
That's
which
okay.
he was a pioneer. His devices were denounced by medical experts. So a part of the history, and I know we've talked about this before, especially in the UK, especially with Ruth Drown, who was in California, and Albert Abrahams, of which we've mentioned many times, that radionics started with these folks with health, wasn't it? It was all about health and patients and things. But
Correct.
the article I found here was very interesting. So I'm going to just skip a few things. And this one here said he founded the Delaware Laboratories in Oxford when he did his research, where he did his research and built many radionics devices. The Delaware Laboratories closed in 1987. Most of the radionic artifacts have unknown whereabouts. However, the radionic camera was given to Marcel J. Vogel, Psychic Research Inc. in San Jose, California. Vogel and Dan Willis did extensive tests and trials with the camera. Vogel died in 92, and the whereabouts of the camera since then is unknown. There was a Leslie Weatherhead who had known War and had supported his devices. So I did some more research. And, I thought of a camera being, a camera like, oh, back in those days, a Polaroid camera. And I think you did as well, Dr. Mulder, didn't you?
Right, exactly. Hmm.
And then I found this online, and it was with the Marcel Vogel Crystal Research Project. And there's a picture here of the Delaware Quantum Holographic Camera Project. Well, that camera is 5 foot tall.
Uh-huh.
So we kind of, yeah, he did it. He went out big. One of the projects I worked on with Marcel was an interdimensional imaging device called the Delaware camera, which was imported from England to the lab. The device stood over 5 foot tall, and the internal workings were beautifully machined out of brass. My background with radionics started a long time ago. Da 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 da. So I won't go into it because there's so much interesting thing. And in fact, this article tells you what was inside the camera, what it was made of. Then it shows you projects. And there was one I hadn't mentioned to you, Dr. Moda, that I found. There was a project that the camera, the negative, was used on a woman that was pregnant. And there's a picture on here of the fetus, and you can see the bone structure. By using the negative. That was very, so there was a whole, so this was talking about the laser with the half mirror. And I think that half mirror thing was what they did on that field you explained to me with the experiment, where they had the bugs and half of it was, being sent to kill the bugs and the other half wasn't. And then half the field miraculously lived and the other half of the bugs were dead, right?
Yeah,
And
something along that line.
it was something along that line that you told me. So as I'm flipping over here, there's pictures of it. They're actually even not, this one I didn't share with you, and I'm just flipping through and find this here. As each of us is a fractal representation of one great divine mind, and as in a hologram, in every part is reflected to the whole, and the whole is reflected in every part. Any changes in a hologram is therefore reflected in all aspects of the hologram. The holographic nature of the universe is also reflected fractally in each of us and all the things within the universe into infinity. Now, where am I going with this? This is why mankind using linear accelerators such as at CERN. Who's heard of CERN? CERN in Switzerland, right? So they're using that stuff. It says CERN can never find the smallest particle. So they're trying. I mean, this stuff is proven. If they're doing this in Switzerland with this project with CERN that they've been doing for years, I've got photographs here of the fetus showing the bones that the negative took and the camera took. And I sent it to you as well, Dr. Moder. I know you haven't had time, but when I look at it and I see that the glass that's around it, the dials that it has on it, wireless plates with rational magnetic adjustments between them. I mean, this camera was one, for want of a better word, what was it? One big ass radionics device?
Yes, yeah, it was very spacious. But I think the reason why is probably to house the photographic plates and keep them in a dark environment and that kind of thing. That's probably a lot of what was going on too there because of the size of it.
And there's also a photograph of the innards, and it says here, inside the camera, I measured the dimensions and discovered the entire cavity ratio to be the golden mean, like 1.618 ratio, which the round sound resonators oscillated. So they have all these resonators in it that oscillate. And then on another photograph, it says the radionic dials are tuned to resonance through the principle that everything is enfolded into everything, and that any aspect of the whole can be attuned to a divisional ration of that of that whole. And then they have, so here was a very interesting photograph of the spiral type thing inside. It says the unique element of the Delaware camera from other radionics devices is the incorporation of a time spiral of 7 turns in which the witness once attuned to could resonate at a different place in time to take a photograph in the past or in the future. What sayeth you, Dr. Moder?
Oh, that's interesting stuff. I mean, basically what they're trying to create is a radionics time machine. And
Yeah.
And so, what is time? And it kind of goes back, which is kind of funny about this, because the reason why I got involved in this quantum thing, we've got the quantum series of machines, and I get questions of why are they so, well, what makes these things so special? Well, they are built with ultimately with the application of interacting with quantum computers. And anybody says, well, why the hell do you want to interact with a quantum computer? It's not that you're looking for information, you're trying to use it as a resource. These things are acting like quasi time machines. And so I was able, the whole point of this is to tap into them and have them observed for you through quote unquote time to either change the past or change the future or increase the probabilities for something to happen for you in the future. And and I kind of was joking around with Dr. Drachenblut that about this Mandela effect thing, and that maybe we were the clowns that were screwing with screwing with these quantum computers and causing some of these strange effects in the physical world. And that seems like the kind of thing that I probably wouldn't mind being a part of, but I digress. But the thing about this is what I love about it. He's proving this is kind of it's sort of the beginnings of something really major, and it comes to where does radionics ultimately going to go. And I realize once you start thinking on the quantum, time and space are irrelevant. It doesn't make any difference. Everything's a whole. It's a holographic universe. And the funny thing about a holograph or a hologram is that the tiniest piece will contain the same amount of information as its whole. If you were to knock off a piece of a hologram and you were to look inside that little piece that you just taken away, you will notice that all that information is intact, no matter how small it is. All that information it's in other words, every part of the whole, every piece, every particle of it it's all interdependent. It contains the same amount of information. It's all interconnected. It's all one, if that makes sense.
And Dr. Mulder, you think that, George did this back, in the early 50s
Oh,
and
yeah.
into the 80s. So one of the last pictures I had on here, it says here, once the witness was attuned to and amplified using the magnetic rational dial, and the sound resonators oscillating, the dials would be rotated and attuned to the aspect of the witness to the photograph. If a time element of that aspect wanted to be photographed, then the time spiral would be attuned to. These subtle oscillators would be projected upwards in 3 axes into the separate compartment above which held the photographic plate.
Mm-hmm.
Above the plate, 3 assemblies of lenses and reflectors focus the energy back onto the photographic plate, in which the silver emulsion on the film responded to and captured the image. And that was what we read with the field thing, was what they did with the mirrors. There was like this silver emotion rather, not between it that kind of blocked the right from the left.
Mm-hmm.
And on that whole thing, it says the following is a transcription of the 1983 USPA lecture by Marcel Vogel and the Delaware camera. You can access the full recording on www.psychotronics.org. So I may go later to www.psychotronics.org and listen to the recording of it. It's going to be very long, guys, because I've got pages and pages here. But a lot of these papers then were written back in 1983. That was really not that long ago, right?
Yeah, you can look at the print on them, the fonts, and you can tell that that's coming off of a computer paper.
Yeah. And I haven't read all of this, and I'm not going to, send people to sleep tonight reading it to them. And it's going to be there that you're going to post it if anybody's interested in reading it. I recommend that, you might take a few days to read it, but it's incredible. And some of the stuff I flipped through already, it's like there was one that he did here. And I don't know if any of the listeners knew about George Tansey, and I've got George Tansey's book back in the 80s again. A very good friend of mine trained with George Tansey. And in fact, my grandmother trained with him. And they're again big into health radionics. But there's a little bit that I pulled out here to do with photographic film and then the crystal. And there's one part, it says here, so when I went to the Lavender Tower and Miss Fairline, and we worked together with George Tansey for one whole afternoon. And here is the result that we obtained. I used the image of my heart chakra. And this is the image that I got of my own heart.
Mhm.
chakra. It was heavily exposed plate. The remarkable thing, when we tried to clear the plate in the silver halide, I think it's called, which was exposed, it would not clear in fresh hypo. I had to reach in, lift the plate out, and expose it to the light that was going on. And then the unreacted silver cleared. When you look closely on this picture, you will see points of the light, what is referred in occult teaching as the nadis of the etheric network. The crossover points of energy fields are visible here. I did this 8 times in a row, and each time was able to repeat with the unchanged plate, which was totally blind. I said, that's enough. It works. It's real. Here is the
Mhm.
crystal. Here is the procedure that we have to set up and go ahead and do it. To my sadness, they could not do the work themselves. As a consequent, year and a half ago, I wrote to them requesting the camera that they had then sent to me, and now I have it in my own home. But this goes on and on and on.
Right.
That, even though George Delaware was actually sued by a patient that said, he made her sick and didn't help her, and then he got closed down and all the legal stuff, and that's some of why of the legalities of work and health in the U.S. and this happened with a lot of the early day radionics guys. But some of the experiments that they were doing is way interesting for Dr. Mulder and I to be reading this stuff and
Yeah.
looking more into it. That is incredible.
Oh yes, I mean it just it leads you deeper into the rabbit hole for bigger and better things.
Yeah.
And like I said, I just thought it was you, the experiment that Josh performed there. Again, I was thoroughly impressed with the coin thing, doing the coin experiment. I thought that was absolutely awesome because that verified a lot of things for me personally, with what he was trying to do. And so, but yeah, this is sort of where this technology is going to take a giant leap forward or backward,
Yeah.
depending on your perspective. I mean, going into the past or going into the future, and and you know, I know people are probably thinking, well, why don't we just dissect this thing and build a replica of it? Well, another thing too you got to take into account. Okay, this thing was built by Delaware. It has this energy in it when he built it. That also comes into play with this machine because it's based on the quantum. A lot of stuff is on the quantum level as to why it works. So you got his energy that's basically sort of interconnected with that particular machine and the people that were working on it, the technicians and the craftsmen. And so you have all that interconnected with it